John 7:44. Quid autem ex ipsis volebant ad praehendere eum, sed nemo misit super illum manus. But some from their number wanted to seize him, but no one laid hands upon him. We'll start the end of the verse here and point out that we've seen this idiomatic expression before. Mittere super quemdam manus, to lay hands on someone. And we've got to notice the long quantity of the accusative plural here. This fourth declension noun manus, which is a feminine noun. Misit super illum manus. No one laid hands on him. Now, we happen to have almost precisely the same idiom in English, although that may have been under the influence of the biblical idiom being translated into English. I don't know whether or not, of course, it's very hard to say with such things, whether this is a natively English idiom or not. Somebody more learned than I could tell you. But it is one that we've seen before in the Vulgate, and we will see it again. And it looks just exactly like this in the Greek as well. Mutatis mutandis, of course. So we're going to pass that by briefly since we've talked about it when we talked about verse 30 of this same chapter. So I'd refer you to that video for more on that. I do want to point out, in case you've forgotten, that misit is developed from the third principal part of mito, mittere, misi, missum. So misit. Now here, not send, as we often translate it in English, but laid hands upon that man. We have to make that adjustment in English to preserve the idiom. And I also want to talk about the tense of this verb. Now this is a real squirrely, irregular verb. Welle, to wish or to be willing. The third person singular, present active indicative, which you see a lot, as in the famous Crusaders phrase, Deus vult, God wishes it. You can also think of the third person plural form of the present active indicative, which is also common, volunt. When we take it into the imperfect tense, we're going to have in the third person singular, volebat, and in the third person plural, what we have here, volebant. Now, there's a bunch of other irregular forms that go along with this verb, like wolo, I want or wish, vis, you want or wish, etc., in different tenses and moods, and we're not going to list them all, but it is worth reviewing this verb if it feels rusty for you, because it's very common in all periods of Latin, and it's one that you need to be able to recognize. Finally, we might just comment on something we've seen a few times already, which is the sort of clash of consonants here, two consonants right next to each other that often, but not always, were assimilated. That is, the one was sort of blended into the other. You do sometimes see apprehendere, which is just a development of adprehendere. This is a reality of the production of speech with the mouth, that the one consonant is blended into the next and becomes imperceptible. But the same amount of time is still taken as though we were pronouncing two consonants back to back. So speakers eventually start to change their orthography to match what they hear, and they add in a second copy of the dominant consonant sound. Now, this is a phenomenon that you see to varying degrees at different times in different authors. Individual authors aren't even consistent with themselves necessarily in the way that they do this in different periods. So it's sort of all over the place and not very predictable. But don't be troubled by it. It's just a feature of reading Latin. Finally, we might mention again, quidam, certain folks, certain people, some, quidam autem, which we've seen before, but others, some people, ex ipsis, from them, from that group, etc.